Okay, so we are going to be looking at a book by J. Krishnamurti, and it's called The Only Revolution. And what's interesting here is when he talks, he's really showing you what choiceless awareness is like. So let's begin. The sound of the church bells came through the woods, across the water, and over the deep meadow. The sound was different according to whether it came through the woods or over the open meadows or across the fast-running, noisy stream. Sound, like light, has a quality that silence brings. The deeper the silence, the more the beauty of the sound is heard. That evening, with the sun riding just above the western hills, the sound of those church bells were quite extraordinary. It was as though you heard the bells for the first time. They were not as old as in the ancient cathedrals, but they carried the feeling of that evening. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. It was the longest day of the year, and the sun was setting as far north as it ever would. We hardly ever listen to the sound of a dog's bark, or to the cry of a child, or the laughter of a man as he passes by. We separate ourselves from everything. And then from this isolation, look and listen to all things. It is this separation which is so destructive, for in that lies all conflict and confusion. If you listened to the sound of those bells with complete silence, you would be riding on it, or rather, the sound would carry you across the valley and over the hill. The beauty of it is felt only when you and the sound are not separate, when you are part of it. Meditation is the ending of the separation, not by any action of will or desire, or by seeking the pleasure of things not already tasted. Meditation is not a separate thing from life. It is the very essence of life, the very essence of daily living. To listen to those bells, to hear the laughter of that peasant as he walks by with his wife, to listen to the sound of the bell on the bicycle of the little girl as she passes by. It is the whole of life, and not just a fragment of it, that meditation opens. Questioner: what to you is God? In the modern world, among the students, the workers, and the politicians, God is dead. For the priests, it is a convenient word to enable them to hang on to their jobs, their vested interests, both physical and spiritual. And for the average man, I don't think it bothers him very much, except occasionally when there's some kind of a calamity, or when he wants to appear respectable among his respectable neighbors. Otherwise, it has very little meaning. So I've made the rather long journey here to find out from you what you believe, or if you don't like that word, to find out if God exists in your life. I've been to India and visited various teachers in their places there with their disciples, and they all believe or more or less maintain that there is God and point out the way to him. I would like, if I may, to talk over with you this rather important question, which has haunted man for many thousands of years. Krishnamurti. Belief is one thing, reality another. One leads to bondage, and the other is possible only in freedom. The two have no relationship. Belief cannot be abandoned or set aside in order to get that freedom. Freedom is not a reward. It is not the carrot in front of the donkey. It is important from the beginning to understand this, the contradiction between belief and reality. Belief can never lead to reality. Belief is the result of conditioning or the outcome of fear or the result of an outer or inner authority which gives comfort. Reality is none of these. It is something wholly different. And there is no passage from this to that. The theologian starts from a fixed position. He believes in God, in a savior, or in Krishna, or in Christ, and then spins theories according to his conditioning and the cleverness of his mind. He is, like the communist theoretician, tied to a concept, a formula, and what he spins is the outcome of his own deliberations. The unwary are caught in this, as the unwary fly is caught in the web of the spider. Belief is born out of fear or tradition. 2,000 or 10,000 years of propaganda is the religious structure of words with the rituals, dogmas, and beliefs. The word then becomes extremely important, and the repetition of that word mesmerizes the credulous. The credulous are always willing to believe, to accept, obey, whether what is offered is good or bad, mischievous or beneficial. The believing mind is not an inquiring mind, and so it remains within the limits of the formula or the principle. It is like an animal who, tied to a post, can wander only within the limits of the rope. Question: but without belief, we have nothing. I believe in goodness. I believe in holy matrimony. I believe in the hereafter and in evolutionary growth towards perfection. To me, these beliefs are immensely important, for they keep me in line, in morality. If you take away belief, I am lost. Krishnamurti. Being good and becoming good are two different things. The flowering of goodness is not becoming good. Becoming good is the denial of goodness. Becoming better is a denial of what is. The better corrupts the what is. Being good is now, in the present. Becoming good is in the future, which is the invention of the mind that is caught in belief in a formula of comparison and time. When there is measurement, the good ceases. What is important is not what you believe, what your formulas, principles, dogmas, and opinions are, but why you have them at all, why your mind is burdened with them. Are they essential? If you put that question to yourself seriously, you will find that they are the result of fear or of the habit of accepting. It is this basic fear which prevents you being involved in what actually is. It is this fear that makes for commitment. Being involved is natural. You are involved in life, in your activities. You are in life, in the whole movement of it. But to be committed to a deliberate action of a mind that functions and thinks in fragments, one is committed only to a fragment. You cannot deliberately commit yourself to what you consider the whole, because this consideration is part of a process of thought. And thought is always separative. It always functions in fragments. Questioner. Yes, yes. You cannot be committed without naming that to which you are committed, and naming is limiting. Krishnamurti, is that statement of yours merely a series of words or an actuality which you have now realized? If it is merely a series of words, then it is a belief and therefore has no value at all. If it is an actual truth that you have now discovered, then you are free and in negation. The negation of the false is not a statement. All propaganda is false, and man has lived on propaganda, ranging from soap to God. Questioner. You are forcing me into a corner by your perception. And isn't this also a form of propaganda? To propagate what you see? Krishnamurti, surely not. You are forcing yourself into a corner where you have to face things as they are, unpersuaded, uninfluenced. You are beginning to realize for yourself what is actually in front of you. Therefore, you are free of another, free of all authority, of the word, of the person, of the idea. To see belief is not necessary. On the contrary, to see the absence of belief is necessary. You can see only when there is a negative state not the positive state of a belief. Seeing is a negative state in which the what is alone evident. Belief is a formula of inaction which breeds hypocrisy. And it is this hypocrisy against which all the younger generation are fighting and revolting. But the younger generation get caught in that hypocrisy later on in life. Belief is a danger which must be totally avoided if one is to see the truth of what is. The politician, the priest, the respectable will always function according to a formula, forcing others to live according to that formula. And to the thoughtless, the foolish are always blinded by their words, their promises, their hopes. The authority of the formula becomes far more important than the love of what is. Therefore, authority is evil, whether it be the authority of belief or of tradition or of the custom, which is called morality. Questioner, can I be free of this fear? Krishna, surely you're putting a wrong question, aren't you? You are the fear. You and the fear are not two separate things. The separation is fear, which breeds the formula that, quote, I will conquer it, suppress it, escape from it. This is the tradition which gives a false hope of overcoming fear. When you see that you are the fear, that you and fear are not two separate things, fear disappears. Then formulas and beliefs are not necessary at all. Then you live only with what is and see the truth of it. Questioner, but you've not answered the question about God, have you? Krishna, go to any place of worship. Is God there? In the stone, in the word, in the ritual, in the stimulated feeling of seeing something beautifully done? Religions have divided God as yours and mine, the gods of the East and the gods of the West, and each god has killed the other god. Where is God to be found? Under a leaf? In the skies, in your heart? Or is it merely a word, a symbol, representing something that cannot be put into words? Obviously, you must put aside the symbol, the place of worship, the web of words that man has woven around himself. Only after having done this, not before, can you begin to inquire if there is or is not a reality which is immeasurable. Questioner. But when you have discarded all this, you are completely lost, empty, alone. And in this state, how can you inquire? Krishna. You are in this state because you are pitying yourself. And self-pity is an abomination. You are in this state because you have not seen actually that the false is the false. When you see it, it gives you tremendous energy and freedom to see the truth as the truth, not as an illusion or a fancy of the mind. It is this freedom that is necessary from which to see if there is or is not something which cannot be put into words. But it is not an experience, a personal achievement. All experiences in this sense bring about a separative, contradictory existence. It is this separative existence as the thinker, the observer, that demands further and wider experiences. And what he demands, he will have. But it is not the truth. Truth is not yours or mine. What is yours can be organized, enshrined, exploited. That is what is happening in the world. But truth cannot be organized. Like beauty and love, truth is not in the realm of possessions. So basically, isn't he saying we are all frightened of seeing, actually seeing the what is, not what we want it to be or wish it to be or project it to be or fantasize it to be, but the actual in the moment what is. We're just too afraid. We find it too painful. And so, as he said, we wrap ourselves in beliefs and with that, we try and discover God, or what he calls the immeasurable. And he's saying it can't be done.
So in the way he laid it out here, belief is the antidote to fear.
Right.
But the high price that's paid is that you'll never see anything new.
Right.
You won't be able to see with unbiased
Right.
perception.
Right. And you may have experiences, and you can call those experiences knowing God or seeing God.
Mm-hmm.
But he's saying here that that's another illusion. That's another false. That's not the truth. You know, he's really fundamentally saying the observer, the me, can't be in the picture, can't be in the perception. If we're perceiving through this me, we are by definition perceiving through our conditioning and our beliefs and our fears. And that's what causes us separation from each other and causes us isolation and loneliness.
Beliefs are acquired. You acquire beliefs, but truth, it isn't. It's not acquired, it just is.
That's right.
Oh, boy, that's very profound what you read. I mean, just it's like an axe just chopping away at this huge tree.
Right.
And after a few blows, it seems like the tree sort of accepts that it's going to fall. It's going to go down. It's amazing. And it all, and like you say, it all stems that the belief system comes from the structure that we start to put together at a very early age.
Mhm.
The idea that there's a separate self, there's an idea that there is a ego, and the environment that ego grows up in conditions that ego to how to look at reality, not to see reality, but how to look at it, how to interpret it. And with that kind of a way of seeing stuff, you can't see reality because the glasses that you're looking through are fogged. Beautiful, beautiful.
So that is the fundamental belief on which all other beliefs grow from.
Yep.
Belief in the me.
Yes.
Right. That's the core belief.
And you grow up, it's not even considered a belief. You don't even know about it being a belief. You think that's the way it is. You don't have a reference for talking about the ego. I mean, I damn near came to my 40s and I didn't have a reference. I mean, I got some ideas from psychologists. At some point, I read Karen Horney, and then I figured, boy, I got problems. So I tried to go to the New York City chapter that they had, and unfortunately, I wasn't qualified to go there, but they referenced me to a local psychiatrist out in Plainview. And so for 2 years, I went out there and we got an idea of what I was talking about. But again, it was a fragmented approach. It was trying to get one little thing or a couple of things that were bothering me, settled and cured and so on and so forth. But it was the beginning of the door. But what I'm trying to really say is that, unfortunately, almost all of this world doesn't have a clue about this business of creating a separate self. That all the image of yourself, it's just a thought mechanism. It's made up of thought. There is no, there's a physical body, and there's a brain in that body, and so on and so forth. But it's like a ghost.
Yes.
It has no substance.
Paul, I like how you said that's the core belief. That belief in the egoic self. So my question is what happens if you're able to get rid of that core belief?
Well, yeah, then he says, then you see the what is. That's when you're able to see clearly the what is. And that's when there's a possibility that immeasurable, there is then also a seeing or a being of that immeasurable. Not until, as long as that me is there, he's saying it can't happen.
But,
Right. So what's the process that we get rid of, that we use to get rid of that core belief?
Well,
aspirin.
I think is really being able to see the false, as he says, the false as the false. So every moment of our life, and that's what he refers to as meditation, there has to be this choiceless awareness of what's going on outside and inside. Just a choiceless awareness, because remember, he also says the seeing is the doing. And in that seeing, you're able to pull the plug in that moment. And if one is able to keep doing that, hopefully the mind starts quieting down, because that's how he sees meditation. that it's a living thing.
It's not a thought process.
No, no.
But I have a problem there with really getting an understanding of, getting rid of. To me, that process, that egoic that you talk about, Walter, to me, that's memory. That comes from memory. That comes from the content of your consciousness. You can't get rid of memory. We don't have a, I mean, maybe with drugs, but I don't really see how you get rid of memory. I think what maybe with the readings and the teachings and your help, you begin to understand how the mind works. And when you start getting into the thought process, when you start hearing yourself like I'm now, I'm putting stuff into words, that comes from memory, and you temper it. You're suspicious of it, and that it could be, it's conditioned, and it may not be true.
Yes, but are we not talking about factual memory and psychological?
Okay, all right,
memory,
okay, yes,
right?
Right.
yes.
And that's what
Yes,
right.
it's the psychological memory, the image that we've created about ourselves, that we want to begin to put a pin in.
First is the belief in the me, and from that belief, I store memories about the me.
Right.
Right.
But those are psychological
Exactly,
memories.
right,
And those memories create an image.
right.
And then we identify who and what we are with that image. And that's what hopefully goes. We put a pin in it every time there's a choiceless awareness of its appearance, because we know that it's false. Image, by definition, means not real. It's an image. But we believe it, a belief in it to be real, because it feels real.
So, Walter, I guess part of the answer to your question is certainly from what Kay is saying, is that he encourages this moment by moment witnessing as a way of deconstructing that belief.
Mhm.
Each time I'm able to see myself acting from an image I have of myself and interrupt it, it weakens that belief, puts a pin in it.
I think I'm just going to read the first few paragraphs again, because I think this is a beautiful example of choiceless awareness. Just listen to this. He says, the sound of the church bells came through the woods, across the water, and over the deep meadow. The sound was different according to whether it came through the woods or over the open meadows or across the fast-running, noisy stream. Sound, like light, has a quality that silence brings, silence of the mind. The deeper the silence, the more the beauty of the sound is heard. That evening, with the sun riding just above the western hills, the sound of those church bells were quite extraordinary. It was as though you heard the bells for the first time. They were not as old as in the ancient cathedrals, but they carried the feeling of that evening. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. It was the longest day of the year, and the sun was setting as far north as it ever would. We hardly ever listen to the sound of a dog's bark or to the cry of a child, or the laughter of a man as he passes by. We separate ourselves from everything. And then from this isolation, we look and listen to all things. It is this separation which is so destructive. For in that lies all conflict and confusion. If you listened to the sound of those bells with complete silence, you would be riding on it, or rather, the sound would carry you across the valley and over the hill. The beauty of it is felt only when you and the sound are not separate. There's no me. Meditation is the ending of the separation, not by any action of will or desire, or by seeking the pleasure of things not already tasted. Meditation is not a separate thing from life. It is the very essence of life, the very essence of daily living. To listen to those bells, to hear the laughter of that peasant as he walks by with his wife, to listen to the sound of the bell on the bicycle of the little girl as she passes by. It is the whole of life, and not just a fragment of it, that meditation opens.
Beautiful,
Beautiful.
beautiful.
Yeah, that's the meditation that I'm talking about.
Right.
Yep.
That's right. That's right. So that's why he says the very essence of life. Whether you're sitting, walking, or riding, or driving, whatever.
You're totally present to what is.
That's right. Choicelessly.
Sure, you're right. Well, if you're making a choice, then the ego is back into
That's right.
the picture.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. And what he's describing is seeing all this choicelessly without a me.
Yeah, because you're not judging it then. There's no judge. So you can see it as it is.
Yeah, that choiceless part, I don't agree with. But I think it gets back to this thing of where the choice is coming from. You know, when you're saying choiceless awareness, you're choosing to listen to the bell. There's a part of you that has the possibility, you know, not to listen to the bell, or to, you know, think about the stream, or, you know, or think about something, you know, think about a memory, or all these types of things. You know, I think when he's talking about choiceless awareness, he's like you were saying, Evelyn, it's without the me. It's without separation.
Right.
But
That's right. And those things you just mentioned, Chip, those can come up. But then there's a choiceless awareness of that. And
yeah, I guess what I'm saying is each moment we do have choice, you know, and it's and when most people hear that, they're hearing it from the perspective of the egoic self. You know, I can choose door number 1, door number 2, door number 3, or whatever.
Yeah, that's not.
But it's just this ability to pay attention to what we would like to pay attention to, and in doing that, what happens is everything else kind of is everything else disappears, and so that perpetuation of the me, which happens by thought, isn't there. It's those that process isn't active. That belief isn't active.
So So getting back to your original question, Chip, of so if I'm walking on a country road and the church bells begin ringing, and as I walk along, hearing the church bells, I see that I'm lost in thought, right? The me is present. I'm lost in my story.
Right.
If I'm witnessing and the witnessing reveals that, and I let the thoughts go and don't pursue them. So is that a choice?
I say yes, but I understand people saying no, but see, that's, yeah, I say yes. It's that willingness to relinquish the me and any aspect of our thinking that perpetuates it.
But I'm also but I guess I could hear Krishnamurti saying the seeing is the doing.
Absolutely, and therefore
So-
there is no choice.
Right. So as soon as you see that you're lost in thought, right?
That's it. It's not a
It
choice.
ends.
I'm
Right,
gonna
right.
not think of it.
Right.
It's
Wait.
a seeing it. It's a seeing it.
Wait, so explain that to me, Paul. As soon as you see you're lost in thought, then what happens?
Thought stops.
Mhm. Right.
Thought stops.
That's right.
The thought of the me stops.
The thought of anything
Thought
stops.
stuff.
In
Oh,
other words,
yeah.
the me, the me can only be present if you have a thought of the me,
Right.
A movement of thought. That's
Right.
right.
but not a movement, but thought of the me, right?
Right.
Any thought.
Well,
Mhm.
no, but it's not any thought, because when you're listening to a bell, that's there's an exchange happening here. You know,
But there's no thought involved in the act of listening. There's only listening.
Right.
but see, that's that thing where you all of a sudden, and I think I don't agree with Krishnamurti about this. With the Vedantic stuff, when they talk about thought, it also includes perception.
Includes what?
Perception.
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 Yeah. The vritti, VRITTI. You know, and it's
Well,
so oops.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Chip.
Sorry, I lost you guys. I'm on this new phone and I miss Ugo. You were saying something. I'm sorry. I cut out there.
I just want to say that my understanding of thought is that all thoughts, every thought, every single one comes from memory, comes from your consciousness. It's of the past. It's from time, if you want to understand it that way. So that there is no qualifying. If you're going to qualify thought and say, well, maybe it could come from a different place, something like that. No, if I accept that all of my thoughts come from memory. There is no originality in the thought. And this is where a lot of the artists and a lot of the creative people, some of whom I know, really get upset about this, because they want to hold on to their creativity, their spontaneity, this thing, this inner thing that comes up and expresses itself and all of that. And, you know, I don't know how to talk about that other than saying that, yes, but at some point, whatever you're thinking, whatever you think, it's based on something from the past, if it's in a thought form. And it's with that understanding that I can appreciate when we're talking about this stuff, that there is a way of experiencing without running it through the I, without processing it through the me. Because when you're thinking of something and whether it be sound or visual or whatever, when you're in an experience and you're thinking about the experience, you're not really seeing what's there, because the thing that's witnessing the experience is conditioned thought. Now, I mean, so it's very hard. I mean, I once in a while I can be, and I know exactly what Krishnamurti is saying about listening to the bells and so on and so forth. You're in an experience, usually it happens to me on the water, and there are just snippets of time when you're just present to what's going on. There are birds flying, there are fish running around, there's all kinds of things happening, but you're not concentrating on any one thing. You're not directing your thought. You're just there with what's happening. And that doesn't last too long, because then at some point, wow, look at the size of that fish that jumped. Well,
Right.
boy, that was a beautiful boat. Or something happens which now gets you to, fragmentize your experience.
Okay, hold on. But I don't think Chip would disagree with any of that.
Okay.
Right, Chip?
Well, yeah, I mean, you said a lot of stuff, Ugo. I think we have this fundamental disagreement about what thought is. And I think for me, I'm using, when I say thought, I'm using that term that it's V-R-I-T-T-I, vritti. I think that the Vedantic people use. And that's includes in that perception, So the information of the senses comes into our consciousness, and and we perceive it. So that sound of the bell is coming in through our sense organs, and we're having the opportunity to experience that. So I think that anyway. So I think that like what you said, Ugo, all thought comes from memory. That to me just isn't really the way it works. And I think,
well, when you're talking about the bell ringing, when you interpret it, your perception of it is based on your conditioning. To some people,
that's possibly based on your conditioning, Ugo. If you're in the egoic self, it's based on your conditioning. I agree with that. But if you're not in the egoic self, if you're just in the capital S self, you're just having a perfect, pure experience of that bell ringing. There's no me present in that experience.
Absolutely. But
there's
no perfection involved. There's no judgment involved.
Right, exactly.
Okay,
So what I'm trying to
see,
you have no word for what the hearing of that sound is. For me, it's what the Vedantists call a vritti. It's perception. And I think that's one of the things we've never really defined here in our talks, which is, what is thought?
Well, let me just say that when you want to use a word, right away, you're in memory. That's the problem. The problem is, I think what Krishnamurti is talking about, meditation, there are no words. You're without words.
I understand that, Ugo, but we're using words to have a conversation, basically.
Okay.
I mean, there's no other medium right now that we can use to converse. So,
okay, so
that's the vehicle.
Okay,
So
then
hold
we'll
on,
allow
hold
each
on.
other both of that. But when
Yeah.
you say perfection, that's a judgment. That perfection is based on your conditioning. One man's perfection might be another one's, this perfection.
No, I said perception.
Perception. Well, again, the perception, what you see, it can be judged or can be conditioned. I mean,
Ugo, I agree.
Wait,
I
hold
agree.
on a
When you're
sec.
talking about judgment, when you're talking about memory, I agree. All of that is egoic.
Hold
I
on.
have no disagreement about that.
Chip, so what you're raising this a point to consider is that that we're taking thought to mean a cognitive process. You seem to be saying that your understanding is that thought includes more than the cognitive process, that it also includes other categories of of senses, like perception. Is that what
Yes.
you're saying?
That's right.
So you're using thought in a broader sense than just referring to the cognitive process of thinking.
Exactly.
Uh,
Yep.
Okay, so
Okay.
but would you not say that all that thought, perception, senses, all that is in time, and the seeing that Krishnamurti is talking about here is that which is not in time. It has not to do with time. And another way of saying that is non-conceptual awareness, just pure, absolute awareness. That awareness that's even able to see the consciousness of perception, of thought and thinking. So it's the timeless shining a light on time. And it's that timeless second in which there is what he's calling choiceless awareness.
Well, I don't know if that addresses the issue. I guess, Chip, so you're still left with this feeling that, so when he describes hearing the bells from an absolute place of silence,
Right.
you're raising the point that he's still hearing the bells.
Yeah,
And-
exactly.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
but as he said, the beauty of it is felt only when you and the sound are not separate, when you are part of it. And then he goes on, meditation is the ending of the separation, not by any action of will, choice, or desire, or by seeking pleasure. It is not separate from life. It's the very essence of life and of daily living. To listen to those bells, to hear the laughter of the peasant, to listen to the sound of the bicycle, that's all of life, not just a fragment of it. But in order to do this, he's saying, there must be absolute silence. And that absolute silence is the absence of a me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the absence of all thinking.
Evelyn,
And even
yeah.
the absence of perception, which we usually associate to a me that is perceiving.
No, that's not true. I agree with you that it's the absence of a me, but it's the words are contradictory. You're saying silence and then you're saying sound. You know, but what you said, I think, is actually more accurate than what Krishnamurti said. It's the absence of a me, and that's what it is. But there is still sound. Sound, let's just look at it. Sound is a vibratory phenomenon.
Yes.
And a vibratory phenomena is happening within a temporal, wait a second, it's a vibratory phenomena is happening within a temporal world, right?
Right.
Well, you have 5 senses, and you don't have really control of when they operate and when they don't. They're operating all the time. It's the interpretation that we give to those senses that's usually manipulated by when we develop the ego.
Ugo, I agree with you. It's ego, manipulation, memory, totally on target with that. Absolutely.
So if you listen without the ego being present, then your senses, the experience of your senses is not polluted or colluded by your ego, and you're hearing the pure thing. whatever it
Exactly.
is.
Agree with you completely.
It's,
Okay. Hey, we agree. Let's have a beer. Great.
well,
See, I think
it's-
that when he says, just explain to me, when the seeing is the doing thing, explain to me what you think that means.
in that moment of seeing is
Or hearing. Is it the
or
hearing? also?
hearing or
Okay.
hearing
Okay, and so in that moment of hearing,
the timeless shine. I'm just using this as a metaphor. The timeless shines a spotlight on time.
yes, I agree with you. Absolutely.
And in that moment, there is really no reaction.
Absolutely.
There's no reaction. There's
Absolutely.
just being one with what is.
Absolutely. Because there can't be a reaction, right?
That's right.
Because a reaction would be
The ego.
separation.
That's right. That's right.
Right.
And that's when he said, you know, you're literally like riding on the bell.
Right. Right.
You don't need an ego to experience your senses. I mean,
Right.
That's
Exactly.
right. That's true.
Exactly. And you don't need an ego to experience your senses, and you don't need a memory to experience your senses.
That's right.
Right. Absolutely.
That's
In
right.
fact,
I think-
you know, freedom from the known, another Krishnamurti book would argue that it's best if you could forget your memory, if you could go through life and just experience and experience and experience with no memory, but it doesn't work that way.
Well, no.
Okay, Chip, you have the last word.
Uh-oh.
Because you.
I just want to say thank you to all of you.
Oh,
Thank you, Walter.
Good.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, to be continued.
To
Great.
continue.
Good.
Thanks so much, guys.
Okay,
night.
thank you all.
Buonasera a tutti.
Buonasera.